Glad to be able to be here in Washington to participate in this important hearing. And again, having gone toward the end here, many of my questions have been answered, but I do have a few things that did pop up. And looking at what we've already done as far as CARES funding, and I'll speak specifically to Pennsylvania, between the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Fund, the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, and the Higher Education Emergency Relief Fund, Pennsylvania has received over $713 billion. And when we look at this, 713 million, sorry. And when we look at all the money that's been received, it hasn't all been dispersed yet. And looking at what we're doing and going forward, I think it's a little premature to say we need to do more, because I think the point's already been made that our kids are going to be our students, the ones we care so much about, are going to end up paying this debt back. So I think we need to make sure it's very well invested. And my good colleague from Pennsylvania, Mr. Muser, asked a couple questions regarding budgeting. And, so do we know if the states, or what percentage of the states, and I guess I'll ask you, Mr. Johnson, since you've been working with North Carolina, do you know how much of the money in North Carolina has already been distributed?
It has not been much of the money. Again, $95 million was to the governor. That has not gone out yet. $230 million came from the General Assembly through the large relief package. That is in the process of going out. Then the Education Stabilization Fund is roughly $400 million in North Carolina. That has just finished through its applications, and districts will be applying, will be assessing those and drawing down, but that has not happened either.
So we think that many of the states are probably in the same situation where they have not driven all the money out yet.
I can't answer for other states. It might be a state by state, but I can tell you, North Carolina, we have not done the governor's fund yet. We have not done the General Assembly's fund. All that is in the works of allotments and getting it out. But also the school districts have not drawn down their funds yet either. And the state relief funds, which is just North Carolina, the $50 million, not all of that has been spent yet either. So we're watching that closely, but that will give us an indication of where districts are spending for their needs.
And I guess I would follow up on the need, because I've heard many people tell us that this isn't enough. But do we know what is any budget numbers for what districts think they're going to need going forward for their plans, whether it's PPE, whether it's distance education, and those things? Do we have any idea what that might be costing?
There are definitely estimates out there. I would say in North Carolina, we do not have hard numbers. We have plans that range from recommendations from the governor to requirements that districts right now are trying to put together how they'll respond to those plans. So we should have those numbers in the weeks ahead. And then we also have the CARES Act funding that will help support those plans as they come closer to fruition.
So it would be fair to say that some of the plans that are forthcoming would have funding through money already appropriated by Congress.
Yes, that is absolutely fair to say, especially I can say that for North Carolina, yes.
Yeah, I think that might be a lot of the case, across our nation. And looking at Pennsylvania, in addition to into the CARES funding, the stuff for education, there was also the $150 billion, and Pennsylvania got $4.9 billion into the Treasury, and they're still sitting on over $1 billion of that money too. So there's been a lot of things that have been done to help the states, and I think the biggest or the best thing we can do as a nation is safely reopen our economy, because as mentioned, many of the things are because of budget shortfalls. In some states, I would imagine, have less of a budget shortfall because of the way they handled their reopening, their closing, their reopening more so than other states. Because I know in Pennsylvania it was a total mess. The governor didn't have a good plan and shut businesses and had waivers and a lot of confusion on top of already tenuous situations. So wouldn't you think that reopening our economy safely might be helpful to our districts?
Absolutely. We should reopen safely, and we should get students and teachers back to school as safely as we possibly can. That would be the ideal situation I believe everyone would agree that'd be the ideal situation. We have to make sure we do it safely.
I appreciate that, and that even goes even for our committee hearings, because I did hear some of our educators on the meeting here today mention about how it's good to be able to see the reaction of people for their students, between the student and the teacher, and how they're interacting. I think that's so valuable too when we're talking about members of Congress communicating with one another or with the witnesses that are here in the room. I think there's a lot of value in making sure that we lead by example and we make sure that we're back doing the people's work. We're supposed to be meeting in Congress, not in our living rooms. Thank you. I yield back.